Welcome to the Whole Story podcast. This podcast series is focused on inspiring sustainability in agriculture using the framework of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, also known as the SDGs. Each week, our guests are invited to share their story, highlight a particular one of the 17 goals, and leave us with some practical tips for sustainability on farms. I'm Becks Smith, founder of The Whole Story, a B Corp certified social enterprise inspiring, facilitating, and articulating holistic sustainability in agriculture. And this podcast has been brought to life in partnership with the incredible team at FMG, who are passionate about partnering with organisations like The Whole Story, so together we can support rural New Zealand. So whatever you're doing while listening to this episode, thanks for choosing us. The best way you can support our mahi is to follow and share the show on whatever app you're listening on, and I hope this episode leaves you inspired and excited about the bigger picture of sustainability in agriculture. Today on the Whole Story podcast, I am catching up with Keri Johnston, Chair of the Irrigation New Zealand Board. Keri is a fellow farming wife and mother, but with a background in natural resource engineering, she is a founding director and principal of Irricon Resource Management, an organisation who encouraged working from home before COVID made it cool. This episode is based around the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal number 6, Clean Water and Sanitation. So settle in with a cuppa or enjoy out on the tractor as Keri and I discuss water efficiency, the impact of water scarcity, policy, and how Irrigation New Zealand is supporting the protection of water-related ecosystems. So welcome along, everybody. Today on the Whole Story podcast, we have with us Keri Johnston. And Keri and I are going to be discussing the meaty topic of integrated water resource management and protection of our water-related ecosystems. Now, Keri is the chair of the IrrigationNZ board, and she is also a farming mum and a busy woman. So welcome along, Keri. Thank you for taking the time to be with us today.
Oh, thank you, Becks. I said it's a great opportunity and I'm really excited about it.
Wonderful. So let's kick right into it then. Can you tell us the story of Keri Johnston?
Well, Keri Johnston is a quiet, introverted woman. As you've mentioned, I'm a wife, mum, I'm a natural resources engineer and farming partner. I love to get outside, ride my horse and connect with our land and water. I spent most of my childhood on a farm, and when the time came to decide what on earth I was actually going to do for the rest of my life, I loved science and maths at school, but absolutely hated the sight of blood. So that was ruling out anything in the medical or veterinary field. I just so happened to stumble across natural resources engineering in my last year at high school, and I've never looked back. That was just me to a T. My last year at uni, I met and fell in love with a farmer. To get ahead in farming, that often means that you're moving to new opportunities. And with a really young family, it was getting much harder for me to hold down the conventional 9-to-5 job. So I started my own business on the basis that I could work my own hours from home, wherever that might be, around farming and kids. And it turned out there was actually a lot of other women like me out there, and the business grew to employ about 15 people. So these were all mostly professional women who were living rurally, had married farmers, but still wanted to have a career. And we gave them that opportunity to do it on their own terms, which was really cool. Land and water are my professional passions. Land and water are vital for our communities to thrive, not just now, but forever. And we need to look after them, work with them as opposed to managing them, and do it for everybody. And it's this that gets me out of bed in the morning.
That's awesome, Keri, and what an amazing story. Really cool opportunity you're providing for those women like yourself who have gone into the rural communities and just need that opportunity to hold down meaningful work, but work it around their families and farms.
Yeah, and I mean, we were doing the whole sort of work from home thing before COVID made it cool. You know, that had always been our business model. And when you do spend such a big chunk of time training and working hard to get to a point in your career, often that's thrown away because it just doesn't work for life. And so we've come up with a model that means that you can have it both ways. You can have everything.
That's awesome. Now, I'm curious. I wonder if you could tell me more. Natural resource engineering, what is it?
It's really a civil mechanical cross for engineering with a focus on land and water resources. When I was looking at engineering, the civil side of things did appeal to me probably more, but I couldn't see myself designing, roads and buildings and bridges and those sorts of things. That just didn't sort of fit with who I was. And so the natural resources element with the land and water meant that you focus on those resources more. So it comes down to things more like how to use our land in a better way, manage water, and design the infrastructure that allows that to happen.
That's really cool. There you go. I've learned something today, so thank you, Keri. Sustainability, it's a really big word, and it's such a core value to me and the core value to my business, the whole story behind this podcast. But what about you? What does sustainability mean to you?
It means that our people and our planet are prosperous and resilient, and that there is a sense of this enduring far, far into the future.
Yeah, I really like that long-term future view. It's not just about those short-term wins for today, is it?
No, it's not. And I think we do need to look beyond sort of the end of our nose and look much further out. And if we can do that, then I think we will achieve the ultimate sustainability.
What would be really interesting is, how do you think we do that? How do we pull our heads out from just looking right, as you say, in front of your nose and actually get up in the helicopter and see that long-term vision?
It's a mindset shift for many. Generally, our culture, we do tend to be quite short-sighted. We tend to look a few years ahead often rather than much longer than that. I think there's an education piece in there too about lifting the head and shifting that gaze much further out.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So talking about your links to agriculture, you discussed growing up on farm. Could you touch on that a little bit more about your first links into the agricultural sector?
Yeah, so it was actually my grandparents farmed at Mahino in North Otago. When I was 10, mum and dad actually got into farming themselves, and the farm was located between Oamaru, Totara and Kakanui in North Otago as well. Sheep and beef, all dry land. Mum and dad both worked off farm as well to make it all work, as you often have to do nowadays as well. Funnily enough, all I thought back then was that farming was really, really hard work, and why on earth would anybody else want to get into this and do it? And here I am. Yeah.
I was thinking that over the week as we were working hard in the springtime pressures. Farming is really hard work. I come from an urban background, and sometimes I think when we're out, 10, 11 o'clock at night, trying to get things finished and carving cows and things, I'd love everybody to see how hard farmers work.
Oh, it is. And I mean, I obviously have a job off farm as well. And, it's the days where you've been away all day for your day job in inverted commas, and you're coming home and there's still the farm jobs, that need to be done. But look, it is a great lifestyle, as I'm sure that you will agree to. And it's that which keeps us here. It's that which keeps us grounded and attached to the land. Yep.
Oh, 100%. For all its hard work and the blood, sweat and tears, there's nowhere else I'd rather be, and to be raising a family as well.
Oh, totally agree.
Yeah, and so we like to put people in the hot seat next. What is your funniest story relating to farming or agriculture?
So we're obviously raising our kids on farm as well. And one of the funniest stories I can think of was when I went to pick up my youngest from school. The teacher pulled me aside to let me know that my darling daughter had managed to mortify her year 2 class with her "what did you do this weekend" story. She had told her class about the heifer that needed a bit of assistance to calve, but what she had basically said was that Dad had tied the calf's legs to the motorbike, then towed the heifer with the calf protruding around the paddock. It obviously didn't happen quite like that, but the 6-year-old version was apparently a bit too colourful for her classmates. Thankfully, the teacher was a farmer, so she managed to appease the class, but I think the picture that my darling daughter managed to paint was of this sort of heifer and calf being taken for a joyride around the paddock. Anyway, so that was her "what did she do this weekend" story that managed to give her classmates quite a different picture of farming.
Oh, I love that. Kids say the darndest things, right?
Oh, don't they?
So I'd love you to tell us a little bit more about your journey to Irrigation NZ.
Sure. So, as you know, land and water are my professional passions, and I saw Irrigation New Zealand as a way to give back to the sector that had been very good to me. but also influence national policy in a direction that aligned with my views on sustainability that we talked about earlier. I have been on the board since 2016 and have been the chair since 2019. Irrigation New Zealand's vision is water for food, fibre and community well-being for this generation and the next, and that just totally speaks to me. It was my first foray into the world of governance and I loved it right from the start, but funnily enough, often considered myself a fraud for being there, that I sort of wasn't good enough. Even when I took on the chair's role, I sort of still had that imposter syndrome that we often speak about. But I'm really proud to say now that the organisation is in good heart. It's being effective at its strategic priorities of lead, influence and empower. It's in a good space. I'm really happy.
Oh, well done, Keri. That's no small feat and also not an insignificant amount of time that you've been involved with Irrigation New Zealand. So thank you for that hard work there, because I know that those forays into governance and battling that imposter syndrome isn't easy, but you're obviously managing to push through that and get some really good mahi done with your team on the board and operationally.
Yeah, I think it helps when you are really focused on the strategy and sort of what it is you're there to achieve, and everybody's bought into that. And that's not just at board level, but at our membership level as well. We all have our sort of eye on that prize at the end. And I think too, there has been a shift in mindset, particularly in recent years, about sort of more of a work with rather than work against approach, particularly in the policy environment in Wellington. That in itself, I think, is really, really good, but it also means that we are doing things differently. That is something that aligns with me much better than the sort of bang your fist, chest beating approach of perhaps advocacy in the past.
Yeah, it'd be really interesting to hear from you. I mean, that water space and policy has been moving at such a rapid rate of knots at the moment and can be quite negative at times. I'd love to hear your insights into how you actually keep that conversation positive and how you manage that rate of change.
I think in terms of keeping the conversation positive, it's actually about just sticking on our road. You're right, there is a lot of negative and quite loud voices out there, especially at the moment, but you kind of just have to keep them in your periphery, but just keep going forward on your own track and your own journey and your messaging, and just keep that positivity out there as much as you can. Also, not necessarily refute. I don't think you get anything from hitting the ball back over the net to that negative speak all of the time, but every now and again you do need to correct some of the misinformation that is out there, because that is probably quite harmful. So that is what we spend a bit of our time doing.
Yeah, that's really great. And we really do appreciate the work there because, as you rightly say, correcting that misinformation is so vital that the wrong messages don't get out there.
Yeah, it is. And we've got to actually, as a sector, fill those voids that are out there so that negative voice doesn't have the opportunity to do it. It has to be that positive, robust information that is out there more so than anything else.
Yeah, definitely. So the work I do with The Whole Story and also this podcast series is based around the framework of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And this episode in particular is focused on goal number 6, which is clean water and sanitation. And I'd like to just take the time to dive a little bit deeper into that goal and discuss the work that Irrigation New Zealand is doing to contribute to the progress towards the targets within this goal. There's a few targets within the goal that I think that the work relates to, which is around increasing water use efficiency across all sectors, ensuring sustainable withdrawals, implementing integrated water resource management at all levels, and protecting and restoring water-related ecosystems. I mean, it's all really complicated stuff, but within these targets, I see Irrigation New Zealand as doing some really valuable work in this space. What are your thoughts, Keri?
Yeah, look, we do. In particular, we have a big focus within Irrigation New Zealand of sort of training our sector. So that's irrigators and the service sector that supports them as well, and good irrigation design and management. And so that ensures that water is used efficiently at the right time, at the right place, and at the right amount. So, that really does sort of tie into making sure that water is used efficiently across our sector anyway. We also have a big role in influencing and designing water quantity and water quality frameworks that take into account the needs of everybody and everything. So this is that sort of holistic view rather than the siloed view that has potentially formed the basis of some of the management frameworks we've seen in the past. And it's also really, really important at the moment in light of climate change adaptation and resilience. Water is going to be critical for everybody going forward in terms of whether it's community water supply, environmental flows, and irrigation abstraction. As our climate does change and areas get drier, having access to water to be able to grow food in particular is going to be really, really important. And that is a big part of what we do.
Yeah, 100%. And I think there was one other target that I wanted to touch on as well, which was around the supporting and strengthening of the participation of local communities in improving water and sanitation management. And it was that support and strengthen local communities that really resonated with me with the work that Irrigation NZ is doing.
Yeah, and look, the local communities aspect is really, really important. And I mean, even in your neck of the woods and certainly around mine, the rise of catchment groups has been really prevalent and important in providing that connectivity between sort of grassroots and the policymakers and policy settings that we're seeing. And so you need that buy-in right from the very first level at that grassroots if any of this stuff is going to be effective but also enduring. If you don't have those on the ground on board, it is just doomed for failure.
Yeah, it really needs to be a grassroots-led approach, doesn't it?
It does. Yeah.
As New Zealanders, we've got such a strong number 8 wire mentality that we can actually innovate and we can do incredible things at a local level. If we put our heads together in the right frame of mind, we can achieve greatness. And I think that needs to just resonate through.
It does. And also I think an important point is that we know our catchments better than any person sitting at a desk in Wellington. We've got the knowledge. We have generational knowledge often too, particularly in sort of farming catchments. And so it's bringing all of that knowledge together. And as you said, thinking of the tools in the toolbox, working together collectively. And that also includes with iwi Māori as well, to actually come up with the visions and the solutions for our own catchments. And every catchment in New Zealand is different. It has its own challenges and its own opportunities. Having a one-size-fits-all approach to this isn't going to work either. The grassroots aspect of it is so critically important.
Looking at the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, Keri, which one of those resonates strongest with you and why?
I actually struggled to pick just one, if I'm honest, when I was looking at all of these. The ones that stood out for me were climate action, life below water, life on land, good health and well-being, and partnership for the goals. I mean, there is so much interconnectedness between them all. But land and water are our lifeblood. And if we look after them, work with them and work together, then many of the sustainable development goals start to be or will be achieved. And the thought of that totally fills my cup.
Yeah, me too. It's like being a kid in a candy store, right? There's too many to choose from and you just want to take them all home.
I did. Yeah, I was looking at them going, I can't pick one.
It is really challenging. And I think, as you've so clearly said, they're so interconnected and, you start to make progress on some and you find that influences others. So, I mean, that's the beauty of them, really.
Oh, I think it is. And I also think, to my comment before, we do have to look at this stuff far more holistically than potentially we have in the past, where we've siloed all of these things, but everything is connected. And if we can get into that helicopter and take that view, I think our chances of success are just that much greater.
Yeah, that resonates so strongly with me, Keri. So we're on the same page there. So what do you think is the biggest challenge for New Zealand's agricultural sector regarding sustainability? And let's flip the script on that. And how would you turn that into an opportunity?
I think one of the biggest challenges that we've got, especially at the moment, is the view that sustainability means a loss of some sort. So whether that's profit by reducing income or increasing costs, or even a loss of autonomy, so some bureaucrat is sort of telling me how to farm, that sort of thing. And also too, as we touched on before, there's lots of negative closed mindsets out there at the moment and those loud voices. That is, to me anyway, sort of raising anxiety levels out there that don't need to be there. Change is scary for many, but we don't farm now the same way we did even 10 years ago. So, change is a constant. We need to embrace change. And look, I do accept that the degree and pace of change that we are seeing at the moment is perhaps more than we have seen, particularly in recent times. But we have an opportunity to cement ourselves as leaders with courage and integrity. So we're doing what is right over what is easy, and we're doing it in such a way that we are still profitable, our communities and our environment are healthy and well, and will continue to be so for a very, very long time. And look, we will need to be innovative, and that also means being brave and having adult conversations on things like gene editing, for example. But I believe we can do it.
It was really wonderful, Keri. I just love how you've definitely flipped the script on that one. And I love the piece of bravery and integrity. We can do hard things, and we've shown it before, and we'll do it again.
Absolutely. And, that is what we're known for. And we just have to remember that and think that, yes, we can do this. And I said, just have that positive spin on things rather than being pulled down into that negative all the time. There is massive opportunity for us in this, not only just necessarily at our level, which I think the opportunity there is huge, but also to, I said, set ourselves apart on that world stage and be shown to be leaders who aren't afraid to take on these challenges.
Yeah, definitely. As you said, doing what's right over what's easy. And I think that, if people can keep that in mind, then we will be in the right place.
Absolutely.
So what's on the card for the next 12 months for Keri?
Oh, well, just trucking on. The next big national conversation is going to be around freshwater, so I'm really excited about that. So watch this space. I will also be carrying on my Te Reo Māori journey. I'm currently doing level 2 and am loving that.
That's awesome, Keri. I highly encourage people, if you haven't started your own Te Reo journey, then get involved in some of the amazing courses that are available, because I myself have started that as well. And as a culture and as an identity as Aotearoa New Zealand, that connection with our language is really meaningful to me. And I've really enjoyed the process. So I'd encourage everybody to get on board and try and upskill there.
Oh, absolutely, I would. And like I said, I've totally loved the journey myself. And I think too, as you said, it's really important for us even to understand some of our own history. I mean, I've come through schooling where we didn't learn much about our own New Zealand history, learned about world wars and those sorts of things, and not necessarily those things right in our own heartland. And so it's been very insightful and eye-opening. It has certainly opened my mind far more to thinking about things in a slightly different way, and just I have embraced it and I've loved it.
I think it's part of embracing our future as a nation and what we could look like by having our eyes open to our past and taking that forward. And how do we then create our identity as New Zealand?
Yes, I would totally agree.
So I'd love to leave our listeners back down at the grassroots level, Keri, and I wonder if you could give us one practical take-home action that farming businesses can take to contribute to their sustainability journey.
Yeah, so my take-home message for everybody is this stuff is not hard or scary. Get good advice from someone who knows farming as well as the environmental and sustainability piece, and to get going on it now. Change isn't going to, nor does it have to happen overnight. But if you have a vision and a plan on how you are going to get there, all will be well.
That is such a great advice there, with just really, get started. It doesn't have to happen all at once, but just take that first step, everybody. It is not hard, it's not scary, and there are some amazing rural professionals out there who are bending over backwards to give you a hand.
Yeah, and who are sharing this journey with you as well. If you get the right support, I mean, we're farming too. As you said, many of us are rural professionals. We get it. We totally share your journey with you, and we can share our journey with you too. We're learning from each other, and that is the beauty of this. We're growing together.
Yeah, definitely. All about the partnership. Nobody knows everything. We're all just learning off each other and finding our feet on the way through.
Absolutely. And look, we're not necessarily always going to get it right the first time, But as long as we learn from that and grow from it, then that's actually a win.
Yeah, 100%. Oh, well, thank you so much for your time today, Keri. This has been wonderful, and I know that our listeners will really get some practical tips out of this, some new knowledge, and hopefully have had a really enjoyable listen. So thank you so much for taking your time out of your busy schedule, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you, Becks, and I've really enjoyed the opportunity to do this too. So thank you, and I think the podcast is a wonderful idea.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Whole Story podcast. We really hope you enjoyed it and are feeling inspired and optimistic about putting sustainability into practice on farm. I have one last request for you before you go. Make sure, whatever platform you're listening to us on, that you hit follow and share the show or episodes with your friends, so that together we can grow our community and inspire sustainability in agriculture in Aotearoa, New Zealand. And thanks again to FMG for partnering with The Whole Story so that we could bring this podcast to life for you all to enjoy. Catch you next time.